Hello everyone, this is Perez. I'm an inclusive learning consultant based in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I'm currently the professional learning chair of the ISTE Inclusive Learning Network. In this presentation, I'm going to focus on coding for all, opening up programming and robotics to diverse learners with the Tickle app and Sphero. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at @IOnAccess, and I look forward to connecting with you on that social network. Before I turn over to a demo of the Tickle app and Sphero, I want to first begin with the why. Why do we want to focus on coding for all in STEM? And for me, the why is really illustrated by this slide. When we look at undergraduate STEM majors, only about 10% of them reported having a disability. And as we go up into graduate school, those numbers also decrease dramatically, so that only 5% of graduate students reported having a disability in 2012, according to Moon, Todd, Morton, and Ivy. And only 1% of all STEM doctorates were awarded to people with disabilities. So this is something that we need to change, and in order to change it, we're going to have to start much earlier with our students. We're going to have to start in middle school or even earlier in elementary school when we expose them to coding. And one way that we can do that, bring about that change, is by making sure that we're using apps that are accessible in the classroom. And so in this presentation, I'm going to look at one app that does a really good job of being accessible to the VoiceOver screen reader that a lot of students who are blind need to use in order to access information. And that app is called Tickle. Tickle is a visual programming tool. It uses block programming, so you can visually see the different components of a program as you put it together. Even though you're using visual programming, you can also look at the Swift code under the hood, specifically Swift 3.0. And Swift is the programming language that's used to create iOS apps and more. With Tickle, you can also control robots like the Sphero. Now, note that in order to do that, you need to purchase what are called Tickle coins. These are available as an in-app purchase within the app, but other than that, you can create your programs and much more for free. It's just when you go to control an external device that you have to pay for those Tickle coins. And the most important thing that we're going to focus on today is the VoiceOver support within Tickle, because this is what makes that app accessible. All right, with that out of the way, I'm going to turn over to a demo. The first part of that demo, we're going to look at how to set up the accessibility shortcut. And the reason we want to set up that accessibility shortcut is that we can safely experiment with VoiceOver. And then if anything goes wrong, we can perform that shortcut, which is a triple click of the home button, to turn VoiceOver off. To turn on the accessibility shortcut on your device, first go into Settings. Go ahead and choose General on the left side of the screen, and then Accessibility on the right side. Once you see the accessibility pane, go ahead and scroll all the way down to the bottom and look for Accessibility Shortcut. Now here you'll notice that I have it set up to VoiceOver. That's exactly what we want. We want to make sure that only one option is in the accessibility shortcut. That way, when we triple click the home button, it's going to act as a toggle. It's going to turn VoiceOver off immediately. Now, if you have more than one option set up for the accessibility shortcut, then that means when you triple click the home button, you're going to get a menu which will show you all the different options that you have selected. The problem is if you're struggling with VoiceOver, then you won't be able to interact with this menu to turn it off. So we want to make sure that we have just one option for the accessibility shortcut. And so that when you scroll down to the bottom of the accessibility pane, instead of Ask, it says just the name VoiceOver. All right, so that's how you set up the accessibility shortcut. Now let's take a look at VoiceOver in action. Once you have the accessibility shortcut set up, you can quickly turn VoiceOver on by triple clicking the home button on your device.
VoiceOver on, camera, landscape.
When VoiceOver is turned on, you'll notice there's a black rectangle around the currently selected app. This is known as the VoiceOver cursor. And by moving this cursor, you can change what VoiceOver reads out loud. There are two ways you can move the VoiceOver cursor. First, you can explore by touch, just by moving your finger around on the screen to change what's read aloud.
Tinker. Actions of Tickle. Actions available.
And then the other way you can move the VoiceOver cursor is by using flicking gestures. A flick to the right with one finger will move the VoiceOver cursor forward, and a flick to the left with one finger will move it back.
Tinker. Actions available.
Now this is where it gets tricky. In order to launch an app or activate a control, you can't just perform a single tap. With VoiceOver, you have to double tap. And you can double tap anywhere on the screen, so the entire screen essentially becomes a big button. So it's a two-step process. First you have to select an item, and then you have to double tap to activate it.
Tinker. Text field.
And not to pick on the Tinker team, I think it's a great app, but there's an issue with it in that it's not VoiceOver accessible. And I'm going to demonstrate that now by just moving my finger around on the screen. So let's see what we hear with VoiceOver.
Text field.
None of the controls in this app are actually accessible. We can't hear them with VoiceOver, either by exploring by touch or by using a flicking gesture.
Text field. Text field.
That thumping sound just tells me that I can't move forward or backwards here. There's just one text field, and that's all I can hear read out loud. So that's Tinker. Next, let's take a look at an app called Tickle that does a much better job of incorporating accessibility.
Tickle. My projects.
I will use my VoiceOver flick gestures just to give you an idea of how the Tickle team has labeled some of the items on this opening screen.
Add a new project button. Project Sphero button. Author is me. Modified 1 minute ago. Play the project but share the project button. Show more options button.
I'll go ahead and launch this project, so I'm going to flick to the left until the option to launch it is selected.
Share the project but play the project button.
And now I will double tap anywhere on the screen with one finger, and we'll go ahead and take a look at this project.
Play. Edit.
Now, right now there's nothing in this project, so the first thing we need to do is edit that. So with edit selected, I'm going to double tap anywhere on the screen again with one finger.
My projects.
Once again, I'm going to navigate around with one finger. I'm going to perform a flicking gesture to the right just so that you can hear some of the options and how they've been labeled.
Project Sphero. Help button. Stage button. Sphero button. Blue whale button. Add button. Play button. Zoom. Play button. Lesson button. Calibration button. Code button. Undo, redo, dimmed button.
Alright, to get started with our project, the first thing is we need to select from one of the tabs on the left side of the screen. Another way you can navigate with VoiceOver is you can just move your finger around on the screen and you'll hear whatever's underneath your finger. And this may be an easier way to select some options. So I'm going to do that with the different block types.
Looks.
Once I've selected one of those tabs on the left side of the screen, I can flick to the right or to the left to change which tab is selected. So here, let's choose events first.
Devices. Events.
And now I'll double tap with one finger.
Events. When starting to play.
Let's go ahead and add an event where we're going to have the iPad hear a clap and then perform an action.
When iPad hears clapping, double tap and hold and drag to the right.
We'll follow the directions, so I'm going to double tap and hold with one finger. and then drag to the right side to put this block into the work area. Now this is an area where there could be some improvement, because right now I'm actually,
to delete the block.
Lets me know that I should drop it to delete it, but in fact I'm actually adding it to the work area. Next, we'll repeat these steps to add some motion once this event takes place. So I'll do the same thing. I'll select any one of these tabs.
Selected events.
And then flick until I hear the one that I want. I'm going to flick to the left a couple of times to choose motion.
Select looks, motion.
I'll go ahead and double tap to make sure motion is selected.
Motion. Selected, motion.
And then what we're going to do is have the Sphero spin a few times.
Spin 2 times for 1 second. Double tap and hold, and drag to the right.
And I'm going to follow the directions. I'll double tap and hold and drag to the right. And what's really nice is that I'm going to hear when it's time to drop this so that it locks into place with the event that I created.
Drop to delete the block. Move below when iPad hears clapping. Move below when iPad hears clapping.
All right, when I get that hint to drop the motion block so that it's locked into the event, I'll go ahead and do that. And now let's hear what we've created. And you can select any part of any of these blocks and then just flick left or right, and you can go through the options.
Events block, win. iPad text field. Here's clapping, end of block. Motion block, spin. 2, text field. Pleat times 4. 1, text field. Seconds, end of block.
Alright, so this is a very simple routine. I just wanted to show you how you could create it with VoiceOver. Now let's go ahead and play that and see how it works with this Sphero.
Play button. Selected, play.
Alright, I hope you've enjoyed this quick look at the use of the Tickle app to program a Sphero robot using VoiceOver. To conclude this presentation, let's just quickly review what we've looked at. First, I presented a case for why we need to make coding accessible by looking at some of the figures for the representation of people with disabilities in STEM fields, which is not good, and it's something we need to change. Then we took a look at how to set up the accessibility shortcut on iOS devices so that we can safely explore the use of the VoiceOver screen reader to test for accessibility. And then we looked at 2 examples, one of an app that is not accessible, and for that demo I looked at the Tinker app, and we saw that we couldn't select anything with VoiceOver inside of that app. None of the controls were labeled. And then we looked at an example of an app that has good accessibility support. In this case, we looked at the Tickle app, where the controls are all labeled and they can be described by VoiceOver as we move our finger around or as we perform flicking gestures. And then we also looked very briefly at how we can use the Tickle app to control a Sphero robot. And again, this combination of Sphero and Tickle with the accessibility support ensures that anybody who wants to use this app to learn about coding can do so. That's it for this presentation on accessible coding. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you at the ISTE conference this year.